After 12 years of marriage, birthdays, holidays, hospital visits, nights on the kitchen floor talking through job losses and family drama. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd earned the right to fall apart with some kind of dignity. But it came out so quietly I almost missed it. "I can't stand you anymore, Matt," she said, stirring her tea like she hadn't just thrown a grenade across the dinner table. "I haven't for a long time." She didn't say it with rage, or even sadness, just exhaustion, the kind that builds up in layers over time. Sheets of ice where once there was fire. I didn't ask her to explain. What would be the point? She had this look in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not even resentment. It was apathy, the absence of feeling. And somehow, that was worse than hatred. That night, I packed a bag. No dramatic speech. No yelling. I left the house, the car, the carefully divided finances we'd outlined months ago in therapy. Therapy that felt like trying to glue together something that had already crumbled to dust. I left. I vanished. I got in my truck and drove, with no idea where I was going. I didn't want pity or explanations. I wanted to disappear until I stopped hurting. A friend from college had a cabin up north. Isolated, quiet, barely on the grid. I asked if I could borrow it. He didn't ask questions, just texted me the code to the lockbox. For the next 2 weeks, I lived like a ghost. No social media. No texts. I turned my phone off. Ate instant noodles, chopped firewood, read old books by flashlight. Sometimes I just stared out over the frozen lake, wondering how two people who once shared everything could now feel like strangers from different worlds. But it wasn't her that haunted me. It was me. The way I'd stopped trying. How I let the routine become a wall between us. How I missed all the signs she was slowly checking out. Each small silence. Each night she went to bed early. Each time her eyes slid past me like I was a shadow she no longer recognized. I thought I was being steady. Stable. But maybe I was just absent in all the ways that mattered. One morning, it was snowing hard. I stepped outside to clear the steps and found a letter in the mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a note in her handwriting. Underscore, I didn't mean for it to come out like that. But maybe I did. Maybe I was hoping it would break something, so you finally see how far apart we drifted. You didn't fight me on it. You didn't ask me why. You just disappeared. I don't know if that hurts more or less. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I just wanted you to know that even now, I still look at the front door every night, and part of me still hopes I hear your key. Underscore, I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the letter away either. 2 days later, something happened that shook me more than her admission ever did. I got a call from her number. Not a text, not a voicemail. A real call. I let it ring once. Twice. I stared at it like it was a ghost I wasn't ready to face. Then I answered. It wasn't her. It was her sister. "Matt," she said, breathless. I didn't know where else to call. "It's Sophie. She's in the hospital." My heart stopped. "Car accident," she continued. She was on her way home from work. Hit black ice. They had to pull her out of the wreck. She's stable, but they don't know when she'll wake up. I was already in the truck before she finished the sentence. The hospital smelled like antiseptic, and hope barely hanging on. She looked small in the bed, smaller than I remembered. Wires and machines surrounded her like a cocoon. Her hair was matted with dried blood near her temple. I sat there for hours, didn't speak, just held her hand like it was the last thread holding me to the world. When visiting hours ended, I refused to leave. I stayed in the waiting room, curled up in a plastic chair, knees drawn to my chest like I was trying to fold back into a time before it all broke. The nurses let me in early the next morning, and that's when it happened. Her fingers moved. Not a lot, just a twitch. But I saw it. I felt it. Then her eyes opened, glassy and unfocused. "Matt," she whispered, her voice a raspy thread. "I'm here," I said, choking on tears I didn't know I had left. "You came back." I nodded, brushing her hand with mine. Always would have. And I meant it. She stayed in the hospital for a week. I didn't leave once. We didn't talk about the party or the tea or the words that tore everything down. Not at first. We talked about dumb things. Her nurses, my ridiculous beard, the bad coffee. But on the final day before she was discharged, she turned to me in the soft afternoon light and said, "I think I said that because I didn't know how to ask for you anymore." I didn't respond right away, because the truth was, I hadn't known how to be asked for. We didn't get back together right away. There was too much rubble to climb through first, but we started showing up again. For dinner, for walks, for therapy, real therapy, the kind where you bleed a little in front of someone else and learn to name the wounds you thought were scars. And we started saying the things we'd buried beneath resentment and silence. I felt invisible. I felt exhausted. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to hear you anymore. Now, a year later, we live in a smaller house. Fewer rooms. Less distance. We talk more. We fight cleaner. We love slower, but stronger. Because I vanished once. And she almost did too. But something shook us awake. Not the crash. Not the hospital. The truth that sometimes the people we love most don't need us to stay in the same room. They need us to fight our way back to it. Together. Would you like a continuation from her perspective? Or a visual prompt to pair with this? They say, you don't remember the moment before the crash. But I do. I remember the cold steering wheel under my fingers, the static on the radio, and the ache. Not the ache from the headache that would follow, but the ache in my chest. The emotional hangover of words said too honestly and too late. I can't stand you anymore. I said it because I was tired, because I was angry, because I was hoping he'd fight me. But Matt didn't fight. He vanished. At first, I was relieved. No shouting, no scene. Just silence. Then came the echo. When you spend years loving someone, their absence isn't quiet. It echoes. Every cup of coffee you pour, every empty chair at dinner, every shared inside joke you almost say aloud, and then remember you're alone. It all rings. I told myself he left too easily. But the truth? I think he left exactly how I made him feel. Unwanted. When I woke up in a hospital, I didn't know where I was. The lights above looked like stars through a fog. And then I heard his voice. I'm here. There are few moments in life when the heart recognizes something before the mind does. That voice was one of them. Matt, the man I said I couldn't stand. The man who still showed up. Recovery was slow. Physically, I healed. But emotionally, it felt like waking up from a bad dream and realizing the worst parts were real. He stayed by my side. Quietly. Gently. And somehow, his presence didn't feel like forgiveness or blame. It just felt like home. A broken one, maybe, but still mine. I watched him read next to my bed with the same concentration he used to give our old Sunday crosswords. I watched him make the nurses laugh. Even when I couldn't smile, I watched him wait. Not for me to come back to him, but for me to come back to myself. And that's when I knew. We hadn't fallen out of love. We just stopped seeing each other. One morning, I asked him, "Did you ever hate me for what I said?" He didn't flinch. He didn't lie. "No," he said, "but I hated myself for making you feel that way." There are no fairy tale endings for people like us. We didn't renew vows or suddenly forget the hard years. We moved into a smaller home with bigger windows and fewer things. We started over, not as new people, but as people who finally chose to see one another fully. Even the flaws. Especially the flaws. Now, when we fight, we hold hands. When we argue. When we're silent, we sit close anyway. When we say, "I love you," we mean I choose you. Still. And when he disappears, whether into work or worry or the woods for a walk, I don't panic anymore. Because I know he'll come back. Because now, he knows I'll ask him to. Would you like the epilogue from Matt again? Maybe a year later with a major life shift, like a child, a move, or a letter from the past? Or a visual scene depicting their journey. 1 year later. The house was quiet that morning. Sunlight warming the kitchen tiles. The kettle humming softly. Matt stood by the counter, pouring tea into 2 mugs. One said, "Let's not talk before caffeine." The other, still choosing you. He smiled at the second one. Sophie entered, wrapped in a faded cardigan, her hair messy, eyes soft with sleep and something deeper, peace. "Morning," she said. "Morning," he replied, handing her the mug. They sat by the window, where a small garden bloomed, one they planted together the previous spring. It wasn't perfect. Some plants had withered, others flourished in surprising places. Like them, Matt glanced at the envelope on the table, a letter he had written and sealed the night he left. He never mailed it, never meant to. It was his goodbye. Now, it felt like a relic of a life that almost ended too soon. He slid it toward her. "What's this?" Sophie asked. "My final words, from a version of me that didn't think we'd make it." She opened it slowly, read the first few lines, and smiled through tears. Then, without a word, she tore it in half, then again and again, until there was nothing but pieces between them. "That man's gone," she whispered. "We both are." Matt reached for her hand. "Good." Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. The day waited, uncomplicated and honest. And as they sat there, sipping tea in their quiet second chance, one truth remained. They didn't go back to who they were. They became who they were always meant to be. Seen low,